Hey guys, join me for another video today. Today I'm going to do a video with my top tips and tricks on how to make your workouts a little bit tougher. Now we're going to take away adding weight, we're going to take that out of the equation. That's a very obvious one. So it's going to be ideas other than adding weight on how to make your workout that little bit tougher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all of these tips and tricks whilst performing a shoulder press with dumbbells, okay? And you can apply this to all your different muscle groups. So for example, you could apply it to a squat, you could apply it to your chest press, on pretty much all of these tips and tricks. There might be the odd few which don't quite work, but most of them you'll be able to just pick it up and say, today's a leg day, I'm going to use these tips and tricks in this workout. So to start with, I'm going to perform a shoulder press here, and I've got my two dumbbells, two 10 kg dumbbells, and I'm just going to perform them normally, and from there we'll go on to a few tips and tricks. So I'll just show you a quick 6 reps here. This is in real time, so that's the real tempo of the movement. From here, what I'm going to aim to do is try and show you some tips and tricks to make this exercise even tougher, because at the moment I'm finding this quite easy. Okay, so the first tip is to slow down the tempo. So on your lifts you have 3 phases. You have the concentric as you push up, you have the static hold at the top, and then you have the eccentric phase on the way down when you bring the weight back down. So the main difference between this video and the first one is I'm going to slow down the eccentric movement, so this phase of the movement as I bring the dumbbells down. This will lead to more micro tears in my muscle, which is a good thing, which will help me grow the muscle back. That will help strain them and lead to greater muscle growth. Also, by having slower tempo, that puts the muscles under more tension for longer. So it's really going to make it tougher. So the next one's a really simple one, is having less rest period in between. So let's say I did that set and I'm usually having 90 seconds rest in between. I'm going to shorten that down to a minute, maybe even 30 seconds rest. Less recovery time. By the time I get to the next set, it's going to be a lot tougher. Okay, next tip is to try and use different training techniques. So I'm going to show you a couple now. So we're going to look at a drop set. We're going to look at a max rest max. And we're also going to look at some supersets. This will make each set more intense and just tougher, okay? So a drop set is pretty self-explanatory. Whereas on the first video I did these 10 kgs to failure and then stopped. This time I'm going to do the 10 kgs until failure, and then once I've failed I put the weight straight down, pick up the 5 kgs, so about half the weight of before, and I perform again until failure. So it's just making it tougher, whereas obviously I stopped before, now I'm continuing and overloading the muscle more. I have sped this video up, so obviously the tempo does look a bit quicker too. So a max rest max set is where you do your maximum number of reps, so you go to failure. Once you've failed, you then rest for about 10 to 15 seconds. While you're resting, try and slow down your breathing, nice deep breaths, and then you perform the same weight again until failure again. You should aim to get about half the number of reps you did on the first set, second time round, if you did go to true failure. So a superset is when you perform 2 different exercises back to back without any rest. There are many different types of supersets. This one is called a post-exhaust. So I'm doing my compound movement first, which is the shoulder press, and then I'm going into an isolation movement, which is going to be a shoulder lateral raise with the dumbbells. This will make the workout far more intense. You can flip the order round, so you could do a pre-exhaust, so do the isolation first, followed by the compound movement afterwards. Okay, so my next tip is to work each side unilaterally, so working one side at a time. You could also use a static hold whilst doing this, so I'll show you what I mean for both of them right now. So doing a unilateral press one arm at a time is pretty challenging. It challenges your stability and your balance, so you may not be able to lift quite as heavy. I did this the other day with a chest press actually on dumbbells, just one pec at a time, and I found it a lot tougher. I couldn't lift the same amount of weight. There'll be some exercises, for example a squat, which will be pretty tough to do unless you are pretty good at the pistol squat, but this is another good way of making it tougher. So a progression to this would be doing a unilateral raise whilst the other side is doing a static hold. The static hold will mean that that shoulder is under constant tension the whole time. So by the time you come round to doing the reps on that side, the shoulder is a little bit fatigued already. So it's another way of making the workout more intense and tougher. Okay, so my next tip is to try and minimize momentum and try and isolate the muscle as best you can. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take away the bench and I'm going to sit on the floor. So even sitting on the bench I am pretty fixed in position, but I could push through my feet a little bit to help me with my lifts. So if I take that away, sit on the floor, I'm going to work my core more, and it's going to be even harder to press up. There's going to be no pushing through the floor of my feet. So this one is a little bit limited in the sense that you couldn't really do this for your lower body. However, I'd really recommend this one if you are limited with weight, limited with overloading the weight. To give you a little bit of a comparison, if I was to sit on the bench and try and go for my heaviest weight for say 6 reps, I could probably only just go over half that weight if I was sitting on the floor. It does make it a lot tougher to lift as heavy. Okay, so by using a few of those tips and tricks, I've managed to make an exercise which originally I found pretty easy, the shoulder press with the 10 kgs on a bench. I can turn that into a much challenging set and get much more out of my workout. So what I'm going to do here is incorporate some of the tips and tricks into a set to make it a lot tougher for me and my shoulders. So if I was to compare the intensity and the toughness to the very first video I showed you right at the start, this is a lot tougher for many reasons. Obviously, first of all, I've decided to sit on the floor. We know why that's tougher. I'm doing a unilateral press with a static hold, and the tempo is very controlled. You'll also see hopefully that my rest period is timed. I'm not just sitting there for 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes on my phone, losing track of time in between sets and getting a load of recovery. The rest period is controlled. So if you hit any plateaus in your training or you're just looking to increase the intensity, having a plan for your workout that includes tempo, rest periods, what kind of supersets you want to do, if you want it to be unilateral or both hands working at the same time, this is how you can push through those plateaus hopefully and take your training to a new level. Obviously you can include increasing the weight, and I do recommend you try pushing that as well, but at this time where gyms are closed and you may only have a few dumbbells at home, that might not always be possible. So hopefully these tips and techniques are another way of helping you do that. So that rounds off my video on top tips and tricks to make your workouts tougher and more intense without necessarily increasing the weight. Apply this to whatever muscle group you're training on that given day. Hopefully it'll make your workouts more intense. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. See you guys soon.